Exactly.
That makes sense. So now tell us a little bit about the cognitive perceptual training and its effectiveness on treating ADHD, and maybe what the treatment plan kind of looks like.
So if someone comes in, say they decide to sign up for our program, what we often will do, our sessions are about an hour in length, the treatment sessions.
Okay.
And so we recommend that people come in twice per week.
Okay.
Now, to answer your question, go a little bit off track just to give you a little bit of background.
No, that's fine.
here. But the one pro of taking ADD medication, it kicks in, and it kicks in quickly. Neurofeedback and cognitive perceptual don't do that. It's the metaphor I use, it's weight training for the brain.
Right.
So you're not going to go into the gym and go one time, oh, look at me, I'm super jacked. It takes time.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we, generally speaking, when we go to look at the brain map, we're looking at what the severity is. Because if they really have a lot of global delta or theta, this is going to take time, Trevor. Sometimes it might take 4 to 6 months for a person to really feel the difference. Now the child feels like I can focus. Like we had a university student, oh my gosh, in a 90-minute lecture, my mind would just go off a gazillion times. Now it very rarely does, and if it does, this is a key thing, she could catch it quicker and bring her focus back. And
that's good.
So through audio-visual entrainment, mindfulness, neurofeedback, her mind still wandered, but she was able to bring it back quicker. So when we do our treatment, people will come in and they will spend about 15 to 20 minutes doing cognitive perceptual training. And then the rest of the time would be 20 to 30 minutes of doing neurofeedback. We're training the brain. We're doing a weight training program for the brain, but we're going at it 2 different ways. So if you came into our office and you saw someone on the synaptic board, we might be doing memory exercises. We might be doing no-go. So for example, the kids think it's a game,
Right.
but what'll happen is on the screen, it'll come up green or red. Every time it comes up green, they gotta respond to every time, oh, don't touch it. And what we're doing is they're taking that sensory information, processing it, and making better decisions. And they're learning how to regulate their attention. So that's just one example. We could also be doing the neurotracker, where we're doing sustained attention. So these balls are moving and they have to track them. And you didn't do this, but the sustained one, where they have to track these 4 balls for 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Now, like when I say, how long can you focus for? And the research is showing that, I think Dr. Daniel Amen's clinic said that our attention now is less than a goldfish, less than 8 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Now,
I kind of believe that. I honestly do, because of the way that social media and these notifications, your smartphone's making you dumb.
Right, and it is. It's like more and more things are trying to vie for our attention. So if I say, can you focus for 8 seconds? A lot of times people give me this, what? And when you do the neurotracker, people realize, wow, how difficult this is. Like we have another company called Visual Edge, and I'll give you an example. One of the exercises is called recognition. So what will happen, Trevor, is there'll be these arrows. So they'll be pointing in different directions.
Yeah.
So we can have 3 arrows. So the 3 arrows pop up, and then now the client has to put in those arrows in the exact same order. So now we're talking working memory, short-term memory, sequential memory. Now, from the kid's perspective, it looks like a game, but it's not. It's literally getting the brain. So that's when people come in, we might start off with cognitive perceptual, and there's lots of research. Dr. Jocelyn Faubert from the University of Montreal, he was the inventor of the neurotracker, and there's been over 2 decades of research to show the efficacy of the neurotracker in terms of improving attention, working memory, brain processing speed. The synaptic, your sensory integration issues. This machine allows us to work on those issues. And the great thing is the kids can see it.
Yeah.
And adults can see it. And they're like, that's a great thing, is their confidence, their self-esteem improves because they're actually seeing, their scores. It's be no different than you and I going into the gym and going, hey man, I can bench press more than I did 2 months ago. And you start to feel better.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I like that you have the approach where it's not just a one size fits all kind of approach. It's more of a, well, let's find out exactly what's happening. And
and the brain scan allows us to do that.
Right, and then you can put the program according to each person's needs. Now, I don't have this question written down, but the next question is, do you do measurements along the way to see how, like this? We started here, and now we are ended up here. So the next level we recommend is this, or how does it go on from there?
Great question. So, generally speaking. And again, generally speaking, the research shows that most people will typically require 40 neurofeedback sessions to symptom resolution. Now, what we'll do is, generally speaking, somewhere between the 10th and the 20th session. Now, we're monitoring people, so if we're asking the parents, we're asking the teachers, how is the child doing? Now, after anywhere between 10 and 20 sessions, we'll do a remap. And the remap will show us how well the brain is healing. Now, the other thing with the cognitive perceptual assessments and the IVA and the TOVA, the 2 continuous performance tests, plus we have all these other series of cognitive tests, short-term memory. What we'll do is, throughout that time frame, it could be 10 sessions, 15, 20, see how people are doing. But generally speaking, for kids, we'll do the IVA or the TOVA again at the 20 session mark.
Okay.
And now, guess what we're looking for?
Same evidence.
Right. Now, and because of my sports background, when I trained NHL players and Western Hockey League players, well, if parents are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on their dryland training program and their goalie program, well, guess how they're going to measure it? Oh, my goalie, his save percentage is getting better. His goals against is getting better. And I just took that paradigm, take that world, and brought it here. So, and I'll say to parents, if you're doing the pharmaceutical, well, if you're taking that, guess what we should see? They're auditory, they're visual focused, they're improving. And if it's not, then that's when I start to question, okay, is this medication, maybe it's the wrong medication, maybe it's the wrong dosage. And same thing with my program. I have to be accountable.
Right.
And I want to, there's some things, for example, emotional management. Now there's more subjective components to it, but that's where the counseling piece, teaching people strategies as to how to regulate their attention. And that's why I'm a huge fan of mindfulness meditation, because we know from research, functional MRI research, that, for example, I don't teach breath work to help people to calm down. You can't feel the breath in the past. You can't feel the breath in the future. The only time and place you can experience the breath is in the moment. Now, we know that the mind is going to wander. So I use the breath as a way of anchoring into the present moment. So we're developing our focus. So if all of a sudden, you and I were just feeling our breath going in and out, and then all of a sudden our mind wanders to the sound outside the door here, we recognize it and bring it back. Now, what the research has shown, not John Stevenson, is that we get cortical thickening. We actually produce, particularly in the prefrontal cortex. We're doing weight training, just like bicep curl, we're strengthening it. This is a practice that people can use long after they've seen us. And that's one of the things I want to do is, I joke about it, but I'm serious about it, is my job is to coach myself out of a job. I want people to come in, they do this program, but also what can they do after? And we found that there's been research to show that 10 years after, that barring any concussions or any significant emotional trauma, the brain is permanently changed and will continue to change if they're doing practices like mindfulness.
Right, so they can continue on with the program even if they're not on the program at Zone.
Correct.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, and that shows that you can get help and it be sustainable. It lasts a long time after you're finished the program with John or with another psychologist.
And I just, I know some medical doctors might be upset when I say this, but I would love for someone to show me the long-term effects of being on ADHD medication and what it does to the body. And, what is it doing to the liver? And so for me, because one of the things, you don't outgrow ADHD.
Right.
You might develop some very, very good coping strategies. But one of the things I tell clients is, okay, if you do have a diagnosis of ADD, you're going to have to take this medication forever. And for some people, it's in fact, it's made a tremendous benefit to their life. But what I've seen in my office, and more in light of the screen time,
right,
is, okay, we'll start off this 20 milligrams. And then let's check in. Now, if we haven't seen any improvement, right, but if they've never asked about screen time or their sleep, now next thing you know, well, okay, let's give more. And I've had, like, the worst case scenario I've ever saw is I had a 9-year-old female who was on, I won't even mention the dosage, and in our office we have biofeedback, we can measure heart rate, and this young girl, resting heart rate was 114 beats per minute.
Holy moly, that's extremely high.
And I don't need to be a fear monger, but some of the university students have died. Because of all of a sudden you're on this stimulant medication, and then all of a sudden you take these monster drinks, and then you're taking alcohol. There have been cases where people have died, and I just think that people need to be mindful of this and be aware of that. And again, for some people, ADHD medication has been life-changing.
Yeah.
And I don't dispute that it works. It does, and it works very, very well. But I just want people to also know that there's another way that we can work with this.
Yeah, and that's really the focus and the topic of this video is how to treat ADHD without using any of the medications, any narcotics or anything of that nature, because there is a way to do it. So John, going back to the different treatments, is there a way that you can use, let's say, both therapies at the same time? So whether someone is using some medications and doing your program as well?
That's a question that we get asked all the time.
Okay.
And yes, people can be on their ADHD medication while simultaneously coming to our treatment program. What often happens, Trevor, is that, for example, a lot of kids right now are on biphenyl, and it's time released. But by the time they come to our office, that medication has basically worn off. So now when they're doing the neurofeedback and the cognitive perceptual, they're actually doing it on their own. Their brain is doing it. So, and what happens is you asked me that previous question. Typically we usually remap somewhere between 15 and 20 sessions.
Right.
And if we're seeing that brain heal, really well, and parents and the teachers or everybody, or the client, the adult client is, yeah, I can focus better, John. I can sustain my attention for longer periods of time. I'm not a medical doctor, and I will never, ever go down this path.
Yeah.
But what I will say is you could go to your medical doctor and look at possibly coming off, like slowly, titrating off. So if you're on, 40 milligrams, it might be 35 or 30, and slowly coming off that medication. And like I said, we've had some clients where they've come completely off that medication, and 10 years after the fact, they're still doing great. Some of our situations, we don't get the person completely off the medication, but they're on a significantly lower dosage than when they first started.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. It just goes to show that there's more than one way to go about this and how to do it, and that you can actually get help in coping with the ADHD.
Right, and in my sports background, Trevor, again, this is where I get passionate.
Sure.
A doctor's opinion is just that. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the medical community, because again, I know several psychiatrists in Edmonton who are phenomenal. They're excellent. But I think a lot of times, if we go to the medical doctor, they've been trained for a long time. Like I had a person ask me, like, why is your program not covered under Alberta Health? And it's like, that's something you need to talk to your politician about, not me. But I've been to university for 12 years. But if you've been trained in the pharmaceutical model, well, guess what you're going to teach?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, parents will go or the client will go and the doctor obviously knows what they're talking about, and they do, but it's only one way of looking at things. And what I can never tell a client whether to take ADHD medication or not.
Right.
All I'm going to say is, look, there's all sorts of different options to work with this. I want you to make a good informed decision of the pros and cons of both types of treatment modalities.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. So, John, it's been a really great discussion talking about how to treat ADHD without narcotics, and that there are options out there for people. If you're not wanting to go down that pathway, or if you're just not feeling well while taking that medication, or any number of reasons why you may want to try a more natural approach and help retrain your brain and get it working most efficiently for you, the best thing to do would be to contact John and his team at Zone Psych. What are some best ways to get a hold of you and schedule that assessment?
Well, the website is zonepsych.com, and on our page there's a contact form, and they can contact us that way, and we'll get right back to them. The other way is contacting us via phone, and our phone number is 780-803-5646. And again, if people just want to ask questions, if they want to just get more information about ADD and treatment programs and different options, our team would be more than glad to answer any questions that people have. And we often like to provide a free consultation just to show people what the assessment procedure looks like, what the treatment procedure would look like. So yeah, if they have any questions, they can contact us either via our website or our phone number.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, John, and I hope that you've gotten a lot of great information out of this conversation with John, and we look forward to sharing more of these videos as far as what Zone Psych does and how they treat people for different things, including ADHD, anxiety, and other things. So we'll share some more videos with you in the future, and we'll see you on the next one.